Welcome, everyone, to Pursuing Joy, where we share audacious stories of joy-infused strength. I have John Mashni, who is a lawyer, writer, entrepreneur, and trusted advisor with me today. So, John, if you could just give me a little bit of insight into those 4 attributes that you have highlighted on your website and tell me what you're engaging in presently.
Yeah, love to. Julie, thanks for having me on. Great to chat with you. And by the way, I love the title Pursuing Joy, Audacious Stories of Joy Infused Strength. This is a great tagline. So
Yeah,
anyway,
thank you.
um, yeah, my background, I went to film school, so I have kind of an entertainment background. That was many years ago. I worked for many years and then went back to law school. So I'm a lawyer, business lawyer. I usually say business, tax, and intellectual property are kind of like the main ones. Really transactional lawyer. And so many times outside general counsel to entrepreneurs and business owners, kind of directing legal traffic for them. And like that's where the trusted advisor comes in, right? A lot of times we're not just like drafting docs or like forming entities, but we're solving legal issues that pop up, whether it's buying a business, selling a business, disputes that pop up, hiring people, firing people, looking at how we can take a strategic approach to intellectual property. That's one of kind of my
Mhm.
specialties of just my film and entertainment background combining with the entrepreneurial mind and vision. In fact, one of the things I say all the time is every company is a media and entertainment company, whether you think you are or not. And working in media and entertainment has really trained me to think like big, big media company lawyers, right? I did work with some of them for a good period of time. So I kind of get how they think and the main things that they think about. And I would say the writer part comes from just, I love telling stories. One of the purposes in my life is share the truth through stories and bring people joy, is
Mhm.
particularly through the children's books. So that's where I hope I hit all of them, but that's
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of part of that's a quick description of me.
Okay. And then I also know from your working genius that you are the evangelizing innovator with your geniuses of invention and galvanizing. And I've experienced that firsthand. And so one of the reasons that I invited you on the podcast is I told you there was a little bit of a struggle with when I push the record button, what turns from natural conversation into very polite, kind of rigid
Yeah,
boundaries
let's
around
just throw it out.
conversation
Yeah, let's go
develops.
dive right in.
Yes. So,
Well,
yeah, I was like, when I was talking to you, I was like, I don't think that will happen with you. And then just based on our pre-conversation, I think we will get into some good stuff. So,
yeah,
today, so we don't have this book, and so what I want to do is order Cindertoot and get like an autographed. I want an
sure.
autographed copy of it because I've told my children the concept of the book, and then I told them I was talking to you on the podcast today, and they
Oh
were
yeah.
already enamored that I would be. They didn't say an innovative mind like I was thinking about how you took this story, but they were very intrigued by the concept that I would be talking to you today. So can you go into a little bit of this? I know there's a series, right? Like there's more than
Yep.
just one. And then how did this
How did
transpire?
I how did I start writing children's books essentially?
Yeah, or even the idea for this.
Oh, that book
Yeah,
particularly.
the Cinderella remix.
So okay, so it's a little crazy because I have 4 kids, amazing kids, and my wife is incredible. And right now, age 15, 12, 10, and 8.
Oh
But
my, we have the exact same. Okay,
really,
those are the ages of my
oh my
my
gosh,
4 children. Yes.
that's crazy. Okay, so yeah, we very similar kind of life, life
Yes.
stages. Well, what happened was what I learned was you know, as we had more kids, I got more time with the older kids because my wife was had to spend more time with
Mhm.
the younger kids, the younger child, the youngest child at the time.
Right, right.
And so when we had our third child, I actually spent a lot of time with the 2 older ones. It was a boy and a girl, Max and Ella, and I had to put them to bed because my wife would be taking
Mhm.
care of the youngest at the time, Esme. And well, what happened was I didn't really like children's books. Like my wife would always
Oh.
read children's books, but I just thought they were too simplistic and too kind of boring, right? Like I just didn't have fun reading children's books. And so I would just make up my own stories instead and just tell the kids stories. And at first it was like, you know, listening to the story, like talking about them. Like I love movies, so I'd be talking about movies, and then it turned into tell me your favorite fairy tales, and then it got to a point where got tired of it because I loved like Cinderella and other fairy tales, and so I said, you know, I started to really think about the fairy tales and just poke fun at them a little bit, right? Like I was like,
Right.
Cinderella makes no sense. Like it doesn't make any sense. And this is me talking to like a 8-year-old kid and a
Right.
6-year-old or 7-year-old or 5-year-old. When I'm like, and this is like, my daughter Ella was like, she loved princesses at the time. She
Mhm.
only would wear dresses, right?
Yep.
Like that's who she was. She wanted to be a princess. Now, totally opposite, right? But so I would just start poking fun at it. It's like, think about this. What kind of idiot prince like sees a girl all night and doesn't even ask her name? Like, let's just talk about this. You don't know the girl's name all night. You never said, "Hey, what's your name?" You're just like, "Hey, I'm a prince." Like I was like,
Mhm.
these are the guys we got to watch out for. Okay, look, and you're just like training your daughter, right, to be like, "Hey, guy doesn't even ask you your name. Like, this is a red flag." Also, I started to say, and by the way, he doesn't recognize her. Like he has to go try on a shoe. Like what? This makes no sense. Like you don't even
I
recognize this
actually
girl. Like did
never
he?
thought about that. He should
Yeah.
have known what she.
So of course, I just started thinking about all this stuff, right?
Okay.
And I started making fun of other fairy tales too. I was like Sleeping Beauty. Like, look, let's just get this out in the open. I was telling my daughter, look, if you take a nap in the middle of the forest and some guy randomly walks up to you and starts making out with you, like, let's just go life skills 101. Don't marry that guy, okay? Just do not marry that guy. And then I said to my son, I was like, Maps, if you see a girl just taking a nap in the middle of a forest, do not start making out with her just randomly,
Right.
okay?
No,
You're
this
going to
is
go to
true.
jail. You're going to go to jail. Like, don't do it. Okay. So by the way, those stories are in some other books that are coming out soon. But
Oh,
but
okay.
but so I started making fun of Cinderella, and then I just said, "Hey guys, you want to know the real story of Cinderella?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And I said, "Well, actually, there was not a slipper. It was she tooted." And then this story was so controversial they had to change it to she lost her slipper. And like they thought it was the funniest thing. And so Cinderella tooted, and then the prince had to go ask all the maidens to pass gas to find the smell of his true love. Like I was just like joking, but like that's the real story, guys. And so it was like 100 times I told different versions of the story, and I made it up, and just it's like you change the names, you change it, but they
Mhm.
loved their favorite version was like Cindertoot, right? Where clock strikes midnight, she has to leave the ball, and then she toots, and then all the prince has is the smell of her toot, and he has to go around goes to go around the kingdom asking the maidens to pass gas. Well, I thought that was just a silly story I told my kids. And essentially, what had happened was I was writing. I'd always loved writing. I'd written a few screenplays. I love telling stories, like I mentioned. And so I was writing articles online. You can find them all on my website, right? You can find all these
Mhm.
like over 100 articles about just stuff I thought was cool and interesting, and about reinventing yourself. So I was
Is that your
writing.
blog? Is that what when you open
Yeah,
the blog?
yeah.
Okay.
So I was really very interested in how to reinvent yourself because that's what I did multiple times in my career. I feel like I'm doing it again right now. And so I was actually writing a book and created a book proposal and was trying to write this book on reinventing yourself called the Reinvention Formula. But the problem was I had a very busy law practice and I just had a crazy life. I wrote 15 minutes a day, Julie. 15 minutes. Like
Wait,
what could
hold
you
on, hold on, hold on. This is where the writing began and it turned into Cindertoot?
Yeah, so what happened was my best friend, one of my best friends in the world, was talking to me and he was like, John, it's gonna take you like 20 years to finish this book, which he was right. He's like, you gotta publish a book next year. This was in 2019. And I was like, what are you talking about? I can't publish a book. I'm never going to be done. He's like, you got to publish something. And so a week later, he comes over to my house and my kids love him. So they're jumping on him, like treating him almost like a jungle gym. And they start saying, hey, listen to this story our dad tells us every night about Cinderella. And she farts. And then the prince has to go find Cinderella by the smell of her tooth. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" This guy's also my pastor, by the way. So it's like I was just like, I cannot believe my kids share this story with our pastor, with my friend. Like this was supposed to be,
Yeah,
private. How about
right.
private? Like this was a family thing. but he could not stop laughing. He has 5 kids of his own. He was like, John, this is hilarious. What are they talking about? And I started explaining it to him, and he goes, you need to publish this book. This is what you got to publish next year. And I just was like, you're crazy. Like, I'm a lawyer. I'm at a big firm. My firm's gonna fire me. All my clients are gonna fire me. Everyone's gonna fire me. It's gonna ruin my career. Like, you're nuts. You're just nuts. I'm trying to be taken seriously, all this kind of stuff. And I talked to my wife about it. She was just like, this is weird, Yeah, this is, yeah. Basically, she's like, you ruined my favorite fairy tale. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. But what happened was I started to get a vision of what it could look like if I said, hey, I'm not just writing the book to write the book. I want to do something with my kids. I want
Mhm.
to teach my kids how to create something. I want to teach them how to start a business. I want to teach them how to take an idea and execute on it and do it with them. Do it with them.
Right.
And don't you feel like it's hard sometimes in life to do stuff with your kids, like professionally? Like, your
Yes.
kids don't see you
But I brought my
perform.
daughter into the podcast,
Yes.
and yeah, so but it's magic when you can, definitely.
And that's what we prayed about it, honestly. And we said, okay,
You prayed
what if
about Cindertoot?
we said, should we write this book? Should I pause writing this book? And essentially, we said, let's do it. But it's got to be something I do with the kids. It's got to be something that's designed to like teach them and work with them and do something with
Right.
them. And that's how that first book came about. It was amazing. And just to hit the theme of joy, I
Mhm.
wrote the first draft of Cindertoot, and I actually hired an editor and I got it edited. And by the way, the editor, Brooke, is fantastic. So just
Okay.
Brooke Vitale is
Keep that in
amazing.
mind. Yes.
But I COVID hit, right? So basically finished editing like March timeframe of 2020. And so I literally, just like everybody else, you kind of like don't know what to do, and you kind of feel like it's a serious, solemn kind of time. And so I put it down. I didn't read it for a couple months. But one day it was like midnight, and I think it was late April, May of 2020. I found my manuscript. So no pictures, nothing, no illustrations. I found the manuscript. It was probably midnight on a midweek. I think it was a Wednesday night. And I was just awake, and I found Cindertoot. And I said, well, I'm just going to read it. So it'd been a couple months since I'd read it, my own story.
Mhm.
And I started laughing out loud. Like, I just was laughing at my own story. And it felt honestly so good to laugh, right? Like, if
Right.
you
Yeah.
remember that time, you
Oh, yeah.
didn't know what was happening. People, you
Mhm.
didn't know, like, was everybody going to die or what was going on? And I just had this realization. I was like, you know what the world kind of needs right now is just some joy. Like, the joy that I felt reading my own story. I was like, gosh, I gotta get this story out. And that's what caused me to say, hey, let's get this out. So we hired an illustrator. Kate did a phenomenal job. And really, what just to kind of wrap up by saying of the joy that I saw, that I found, and then I saw other people. That's what pushes me now to even create more books. Because what I told the kids one time, I said, what do we sell? Like, we sell books. I was like, no, we don't sell books. What
Right.
do we actually sell? We sell about 30 minutes of joy with a child. And sometimes the child's optional. And
Right.
that's why we're doing what we're doing. Right.
Yeah. That.
So
Yes.
I realize that was a long version of it, but that's kind of the background for the books.
Okay. So a few things come up for me there. Okay. So reinventing yourself. It didn't become a book, but it has been your life, right?
It might be someday. I might go
Okay.
back
No,
to it, but
I think so I feel like reinventing yourself is a very scary thing for some people. And
yeah,
so you were in film school, right? Or
yep.
you went to and so were you was film a career of sorts before you
So
became a lawyer? What were
I
you
just
doing
went for a
before
summer.
law?
I went to New York. Yeah, I thought I was going to be a doctor and then a dentist, right? And I just felt like I love
Oh,
stories so
okay.
much. So I said, well, I just want to go to New York and try this. And then when I came back, I realized, I don't want to move to New York. I don't, That's not the way I want to tell stories, right? I don't want to go to New York or LA. And really, then I came back saying, what can I do? And that's when I said, I'm going to write. right? I'm going to write. And then I did work in audio and video and ran a marketing department. And then I did have like freelance production company. So I was still kind of in this space. And then when I became a lawyer, people reached out to me that knew me from working on films and other projects. And they basically, one guy said really memorably, "Hey, John, I hate attorneys, but I like you. Can you help me with my film?" And that's how it started. I never thought I would do entertainment law, but that's
Right.
how it started.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the relationship, especially when it comes to lawyers, I think truly matters. Like,
Yeah.
if you can, yeah. So what made you go to law? What made you decide law school in the middle of
So
like?
this is
How was
actually
that the pivot?
a great story, which I wish we could delve into more. I wrote a whole article about it, but I never thought for one day that I would even think about going to law school until February 2009. I was working in Flint, Michigan, running a media department, doing audio and video. And I came home one day, one night. It was like an hour plus drive from my house. I was married, no kids. And my wife was waiting for me. And it was kind of dark. It was just really weird, to be honest. But as soon as I came in the door, she said, "We need to talk." And
Hmm.
I was just like, truly, in my head, I said, "My wife's leaving me. This sucks." That's what I said in my head. But in reality, she said, "John, you're not the same person I married 5 years ago. You used to be so happy. You used to have so much fun. Going back to your joy theme, like you used to be
Hmm.
full of joy." And she's like, "You're different now, though. You just don't never seem happy. You just kind of seem down and depressed." And she said, "Something has to change." And she'd done all this research before she came and talked to me. I think she was afraid to talk to me. Um, but she said, I figured it out. You can go, I think you should go back to school. I think you should go back to law school. You got good grades. You can take the LSAT. You always do well on tests. And I'll work. You go to school. And I think this would be great for you. And it'll just open doors for you by doing this. And I was just like floored. At that time, I thought I was building this media empire. There was a big lawsuit that kind of put that on hold for a couple of years, source of some of my frustration. And I never thought about going to law school a single time until
But
she said that.
she just thought that.
I think it was part of it was, hey, it's 3 years, it's not 4 years like dental school or medical school, you know? Um, but we prayed about it for about 30 days. So in
Okay.
March, in fact, I'm going to tell you, like, there's an article that I wrote about this exact conversation
Okay.
that I think you would love. I
On
think
your blog?
anybody, yeah, it's called "Now is the Time to Be Unreasonable."
Oh god.
And literally in March, it happened so quickly. In March, we prayed about it for about a month. We said, let's do it. So I decided I would study for the LSAT. I studied, I took it. Um, I can't remember, May or June, right?
Mhm.
I think it was June. I studied literally at lunchtime, like in the evenings. I didn't really have much time to, but I studied, did great, got accepted into law school in September 2009. I literally quit my job the second week of December 2009. And then I was in a law school classroom January 2010. Like it happened very quickly. And it was a blur. And, my wife had gotten pregnant at that time. So we had a first child coming.
Oh
I
goodness.
quit my job. It was crazy. But it all came from my wife really saying, like, I think you should go to law school. And really, like, we need to talk. Like, that's the start of
Right.
it.
Right, because she know okay. I mean, that okay. Um,
It's great. And that's just to go back to reinvention. Like, I feel like for me, that's one of the things that prompted me to say, like, I get this amazing. You could say, like, this is crazy, but I internally, I remember thinking, what an amazing opportunity I have to take, the last 10 years of being in the workforce, hiring people, firing people, starting several businesses, kind of just being out there, having great bosses, having horrible bosses. Now I get this opportunity to just reinvent myself and take all the
mhm.
stuff that I learned and just have a moment in my life where it's like I had really 3 years where I'm going back to school, but I'm bringing all this experience. Like I remember thinking, gosh, I wish I had all this experience the first time I went to college. Like like
Right.
it would be
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
useful. right? And so I committed in 2010, I would take notes and just start to apply all of my thoughts about how to reinvent myself. And I have hundreds of pages of notes, which were the formation and the foundation for my book on reinvention. That's all my articles came from this kind of 3 to 5 year period from 2010 to 2015, where I was just testing my ideas that I had in
Mhm.
my own life of how to reinvent and what to do and shortcuts
Right.
and multipliers and all this kind of stuff. So all of the articles came from that 5 year period where I was like, I'm getting this amazing opportunity.
No, okay. Yeah, because I mean, I have been surrounded by people that don't like what they're doing, but are going to keep doing what they're doing because that's what they decided to do. Like that is that is the reason
Well,
behind it.
oh my gosh, Julie, this is so interesting. So why do you think they do that though? Why?
I would assume because it's familiar. And like I said, it is because I don't subscribe to that, and so it has made me feel off until I started meeting people like John Glon
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
people like that are like, oh no, we're not. This is normal in our world. I'm like, okay,
There is that kind of entrepreneur personality that just really, like let's do it. Let's go, right?
yeah. So
What do you Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
well, I feel like it's and that someone else said this on a podcast of like you've invested in the time and the money to become the thing, and so now you're more obligated to keep going with it. And so I don't know what makes someone decide that it is worth it to do that again and again and again. Right? I
Yeah. I think when I think of reinvention, I break it down into three categories. Okay,
okay.
three different types. And I think that what you're getting at is there's one type that's everyone thinks one type is the best, right? Where you decide. Like I think so. Let me explain the types, and you feel free to disagree. This is just
Okay.
how I categorize it. Because each type you actually have to have a different strategy to reinvent yourself. So the first type I think is one that most people can relate to. You're basically forced to reinvent yourself because of some external thing that happened. Lose your
Right.
job, divorce, health scare, um, something major happens that is outside of your control, and you're forced to reinvent yourself.
Right. The
I call that,
stability facade like drops. Right.
yep, I
Okay.
call that reactive reinvention.
Okay.
And because you're forced, and what happens? Most people land on their feet. Most people do
Mhm.
eventually, right? Like the number one rule in that type of situation is just don't die, right? Like literally, just don't die.
Right.
Don't die. Whether it's like psychologically, physically, just don't die. You got to survive, right? Don't retreat. Don't surrender. Like that's how I think of it.
Right. Right.
And so I feel like most people that's actually how they reinvent because something happened and they're forced to.
Okay.
And that's truly very common. Like, in fact, I remember I wrote a kind of a report on this that I give away for free on my site. But essentially, like a really close friend of mine, even to this day, hey, called me, lost his job. And I said, congrats, man. This is exciting. I'm
Okay,
so
I do
pumped
that to
for you.
people too, so that and I feel kinda bad about it. I'm like, "This is the best day of your life."
Congratulations. Yes, congrats. And you know what I say? Like, you know how many people I know they lose their job and then they go and find something better? Like, this is incredible. Like, congratulations. They think I'm a little crazy, but
Mhm.
I just want to shift their thinking because look, you're getting kicked out of a place where they didn't want you there. Like, this is actually amazing. Like, you got to go a place where people want you. Like,
Right.
this is a great opportunity, right? Doesn't mean that there's not consequences. We got to deal with it. But no, like, look, this is fantastic opportunity. So that's what I call reactive, right? It could be a health scare too. I mean, losing a job is just the one that comes to mind because it happens. Like, it just can happen easily. Um, the second one is I think what you're getting at, where why don't people change? Which I call proactive reinvention, which is
Okay.
you see a trend and you see an opportunity and you proactively change yourself. You change direction. You're like, hey, I was going this way. I'm going to go this way now. That's what I call proactive. The problem with proactive is, one, you have to see a trend, you have to see or have an opportunity. But two, I think the other one is you have to have enough margin in your life to actually go
Mhm.
pursue that opportunity. And the reality is, most people either don't have the time or the energy. Margin just doesn't mean time, it's also energy,
Right.
right? I don't have the time or energy to pursue this trend or opportunity, right? And so they can't. They don't know how to carve out time because they're so busy in what they're doing,
Right. They're just
right?
trying to keep things up that are already
Yes.
there.
And here's the question for you. Doesn't it make sense why many times we do change when we do lose a job or when we do have a health scare? Because immediately we clear off the schedule.
Right, you have the
One,
margin.
we lose a job. It's like, oh, I got all this time. What am I going
Right,
to do? You have the margin immediately because it's someone created it for you. Same thing on a health scare. It's like, oh, I've had a heart attack or I had,
right.
some kind of other health scare. It's like, oh, I have to do this or I'm going to die, right? That's why it's easier. So sometimes you say, oh, the proactive one is the one that's kind of like sexier or more, it seems crazier. It's actually harder because it's like you got to carve out time. You got to
Right.
create this energy. You got to get up early. You got to stay up later. You got to say no to stuff.
Mhm.
You got to carve out time. Right. And I used to think those were the only two types of reinvention until I went through an experience, which I'd love to get into more, but I would just say I went through an experience where I was in like a moot court competition and I lost with my partner. And I was so mad. I was just like, it's my fault we lost. I felt like one, never tell a judge you're missing the point. It's bad, bad idea. Um, but two, I just felt like it was my fault. Like I was like, man. And I kind of wanted to still do this type of competition again, but I realized I couldn't be the same person and still and succeed. I had to change something internally about myself. I was not changing direction though. I had to reinvent myself internally and change a lot about myself in order to succeed. It's like the way I think of it is that I call it reflective reinvention. Like,
Okay.
hey, I have this goal. I've failed one, two, five times. Why have I failed? Because I'm not changing myself. And you have to have a different strategy in reflective reinvention. In one of my favorite stories, I grew up in the 80s watching the NBA, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan could not win an NBA championship until he changed himself. It wasn't about it wasn't about being better than the other players. It was like he had to
Mhm.
change something about himself. He had to get stronger. He had to have a different type of training, right? To beat the Pistons. Like, and
Okay.
guy sports analogy, right? But most people, if you are alive and followed it, remember Jordan was this amazing player and he could score like on anybody, but he didn't play in the team concept, right? And he didn't have the strength and the toughness to go and beat the Detroit Pistons, which I was a Pistons fan, so I paid a lot of attention to it. But but the reality was you have a different strategy in that type of reinvention. And that's one going back to what we were talking about earlier, that's where you need a third party to
Right.
really tell you the hard truth about yourself that you're just ignoring, that you're skipping over. And
Okay.
that's a coach, right?
Right.
That's when a coach is very useful
Right.
because I always say it's like a coach can see the back of your head. You will never see the back of your head. I will never
Right.
see the back of my head. It's impossible. I can use
Okay.
a mirror, but I will never see it directly. But they
Okay.
can they see it, right? They see all of you. You just when you look in the mirror, all you see is the front or the
Right.
side or whatever. But same thing, you don't when you're in a forest and you're lost, you don't need the most brilliant person to help you. You just need someone looking down
Okay.
from a vantage point that you don't have. And so that was kind of the what I found so fascinating about reinvention is each type requires a different strategy. I
Right.
think that's why a lot of people don't reinvent themselves is because they don't understand which type they're in. They're trying to be proactive and they're like, but I'm busy all the time. Well, hey, if you're trying to reinvent, we gotta carve out some time, get some energy, right? If it's
Right.
reflective, we got to get a coach. You got to get somebody outside of you that's going to give you advice that you don't see about yourself.
Okay. Yep. Okay. No, that makes sense. And yeah, we got into a little bit of what coaches offer. But before this, but I'm gonna take this kind of a different direction. And
Sure.
oh, this happens almost every time I do a podcast. So I'm like, okay, if no one else is getting, I'm getting darts thrown at me left and right here. So when you say about the book and the lawyer thing and all that, where you prayed about it before doing it,
Hmm.
what what was your signal? One, what was your signal that that you were supposed to go that direction, spiritually speaking? And then two, was where was the faith in between the pivot and the result? Like, what did you have to where
Yeah,
put the spiritual aspect into that for me?
sure. I think that prayer, for me, the key point was not making it about me. Um, Really, that's what the prayer helped to refine. Because if it was just write a children's book and then that's it, I was like, well, why? I have no reason to do that. Other than
Mhm.
fine, I wrote a book, you know, but I'm already busy. I already don't see my kids enough. I don't see my wife enough. Like it's just, and it's going to cost me money. Why would I do that? But I think praying about it and refining it, and I think, I would say like seek first the kingdom of God, like a Matthew 6 kind of like
Mhm.
Sermon on the Mount filter. Um, that's what praying about it developed. Praying about it said, hey, there's some parts of this that intrigue me. I love telling stories, but how do I turn this into like a Matthew 6 where it's not about me getting writing a book?
Right.
And then it was like, well, what if I did it with my kids? It's like, oh, that's exciting. I remember hearing an NFL player one time say that his kids never got to see him professionally live. And he kind of was sad about it. He was basically saying, like, I'm older now. I'm kind of like beat up and brittle. My young kids never saw me play, never saw me at my best professionally. And that stuck with me. I remember thinking, gosh, I would love, and even with my own father, I would have loved to, never spent time
Right.
with my dad in his element, you know, that would have been cool. So that's what made me think, well, wouldn't it be cool if I got to like do something with my kids, like live, like together, we're
Mhm.
working on it. And so that was the filter. And then the filter was a way to spend time with my kids, a way to teach my kids how to, execute an idea, how to be inspired, how to take something and literally create it. And then we said we would give away some of the money. So I made my
Mhm.
kids pick the charities that we give a percentage
Okay.
of the royalties to. And so the prayer really helped refine, like, why am I really doing this?
Okay.
And it was really that filter of like seek first the kingdom that really kind of said, okay, and even made my wife and I say, yeah, let's do it. My wife was kind of against it because she was like, you're busy enough. But even she gets a kick out of it, Julie. She gets like a glass of wine and she's got like the menus for the draft. And she's like, John, she's like, oh, she's just going, she's brilliant, very witty. And so she's like, we got to do this, we got to do that. Like a lot of the fun inside jokes are my wife's,
Oh,
you know,
okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Um,
contribution. And then I think the other part you asked was, um,
like, when it comes with the reinventing and, like, it's a bold faith
yeah,
move. So, have you had instances where the fruit didn't come right away and you're like, "What
sure.
the actual heck?"
I think there is an element of faith, right? Like, um, and let me like take a little bit different angle. I read a great book a while ago by a guy named Richie Norton, who I think Richie is brilliant, but it was called The Power of Doing Something Stupid. And
Okay.
yeah, it's a great book. But basically the question he asks is what's the stupidest thing you could do right now? What is the stupidest thing? Like, let's just
Ugh.
put it on a piece of paper. Like, and I bet you're thinking of something. Are you thinking of something right now? If I'm like, Julie, what's the stupidest thing you could do right now
Okay,
in your
so,
business?
well, there are 4 things that have been going on for over a year now, and I'm like, this is long enough. This is a long enough faith journey. I should be get something should materialize at this point. So the house that I was talking, so I told you I'm expecting an offer on the house today. So that materialized over a year ago that I was supposed to put the house on the market. It didn't get put on the market until April of this year. And this is where everybody kind of freaks out on me. And I've even like, just please stop asking me questions because I do not have the answer. I'll just any of my good friends, I'm like, nothing has changed. Just don't ask. Don't ask anything on these four things. Just let's move into something else.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
for dinner tonight, something simple. Um, but I don't know where the destination is. I just knew I was supposed to put the house on the market. So I believe when the house sells, or hopefully before the day we have to like pack up the furniture, that we know where we're going. But I
Yeah.
knew the season was up where I was. I very much felt like this was an act of obedience and faith. And I'm on pins and needles today, but I am basically on pins and needles every day. This just happens to be an uptick today. So that and yeah, and no one really understands
You
like
feel like it
why.
was crazy, right? Like it's
Right.
just like,
Yes.
okay. I think there's so much power in just asking the question, like, what's the stupidest thing I could do right now? And I'm not saying always do it, by the way. I'm not saying always do it. But I just think when you ask that question, it just opens up your mind and you remove the filter, like that active cognitive filter a little bit. Like, oh well, okay, let me just list all this crazy stuff I could do. And for me, when I said write a children's book about a farting Cinderella, that
Right.
literally was the stupidest thing I could think of. Like the stupidest. Like I'm a business lawyer. Like we're buying, helping people buy. I think I wrote a whole article about this guy with a client I was helping sell his business for like $20 million. And I was contemplating which toot word to use in the text. And I was waiting for this guy to call me. We're going to talk about this $20 million sale. And I was like, do I use toot here or fart or flatulence or, it was just like, it was like the weirdest moment. Right. So, he did write an article about that because it was so memorable. It was like this, it's like, stream of consciousness, 5 minutes in John's brain of like, hey, what should I say about the 20
Right.
million?
And then you've got
And then, yeah, what word should we use? And should we call her Cinderella or Ella? Or, what color should the fart gas be in the book? I'm like, I don't know. Let's just, so it was so stupid to write, to attach my professional name to
right.
a farting Cinderella book, right? I just like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But then you start to say, the fear kicks in. My
Hmm.
clients are going to fire me. My firm's going to fire me. And you just have all these like this anxiety and this baggage. And then I think this is where the faith came in. I just said, you know what? If someone judges me by a story without even meeting me or talking to me and knowing the purpose behind it, then I don't really want to talk to them. Like they're just, it's fine. I don't, and if my firm fired me, which they didn't, a lot of people laughed. Some people thought it was stupid, but if my firm doesn't want me there, like I don't want to be there then. Right. And same thing with a lot, it's just turned into even like I run Facebook ads. Some people on the ad say like, this is the downfall of our society. It's like, it's actually crazy. I want to like run their comment as the new ad, right? Like, I'm ruining, children's minds, all this stuff. But I think that to get to your question about the faith aspect, right? I think that's what's beautiful when you take one of these stupid ideas and you say, because the truth is it's not stupid, you just think it's stupid. But when you take one of those ideas, like it creates the faith because then it's like you're pressed. You're like, why am I doing this? I'm like, hey, faith is when you don't know the outcome. Like it's not
Hmm.
guaranteed. And like I just was like, I'm going back to what we were saying earlier. I was being authentic. I like making people laugh. I do. I like seeing kids laugh. You know what? You want a cure for any feeling down? Go make a kid laugh. Go
Right.
talk to a kid about something funny. And in my case, it was Tooting Cinderella. Not all the books are toots, okay? But it just seemed like to me, it was like embracing, like, hey, if I'm making kids laugh, I don't care what other people think of me. My own kids are cracking up. You know what? I would do all of the work and spend 10 times as much money to get the moment when my daughter Ella picked up the book Cindertoot for the first time. And so Ella is the name of Cinderella is not her name, right? Her name is Ella. Cinderella
Okay.
is what all of her stepsisters and her stepmother called her to be mean to her, right? Because she had cinder marks on her face. So her name is actually Ella. And in my book, my version, we call her Ella. The only
Okay.
people that call her Cinderella are mean to her. So my daughter sees her name Ella in a book, right? And her name is the main character's name. And the first time we get the books, she opens it up and her face is beaming. And she's reading the acknowledgement where I said, for my four kids, Maxwell, Ella, Esme, and Gemma, who heard this story 100 times before anybody else. The look on her face is worth more than anything to me. Like there were
Right.
beams of light coming off, right? She was so happy and so excited, so joyful. She thought it was the coolest thing in the world. So that's where I think that faith, I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know any of this was going to happen.
Right.
And I think it's just getting started, frankly. But it took some faith to faith just to say like, I'm going to stand behind the decision and I've worked it out in my mind. I realize a lot of stuff could happen, but I'm okay with it. I'm just walking in the path because I believe in it, and I think that it's truly something where it's bringing me joy. It's something that reflects who I want to be.
So what is your current reinvention? Like currently what are you currently doing?
Yeah, good question. So I did in my legal career, I did have a firm where I joined and had some partners, and I stepped away, and now I'm kind of doing things on my own, but with other people, and really creating the firm that fits who I am as a person and who I want to be and the things I want to do and the values I represent. Joy, particularly being authentic, particularly designing the life that you want, not just for me, but for the people that are on my team too. Like I want to make sure they can live the life they want, not just John lives the life he wants and then everyone else is unhappy. Like that's not acceptable to me.
Right.
And that's a wonderful challenge, truly. And I'm embracing it and diving into it. But also at the same time, understanding like the thesis I have is every company is a media and entertainment company, whether you think you are or not. So then I'm bringing that to my law firm. That the firm is called Rendios, which even the name to me was so important.
So what does that
Ren,
mean? Okay.
yeah. Well, I knew I wanted Dios, like Dio, for like some kind of God creator kind of piece to it.
Oh, okay.
But I was originally going to be like authendio to be like authenticity and incorporate it in. And my wife, I literally had the domains, I had it all picked. And my wife, the day before I was going to go live, she was like, John, I hate it. And I was literally like, I bought all the domains, I was ready to go, like I was just, and she was like, I hate it. We can't. I really don't want you to use this name. And I was like, okay. And if there was one person in the world that could veto it at that point, it was pretty
Right.
much only my wife, right? Well, I said, fine. Well, you got to help me come up with a name then, because I need a name not like next week. I need a name like tomorrow, right? And so she goes, okay. So the next day she comes back and says, like, well, I read this book about the bird, the wren, and that they're a bird that is known to like attack larger birds and larger animals. So like small, but they attack larger animals. And I was like, that's kind of like you as a lawyer, right? You're not afraid to like take on these bigger people. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but isn't it like WREN? There's like a silent W. I'm not gonna have a silent W in my firm name. And she's like, yeah, just do REN. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, I could do Dio or Deo or Dios, right? And so the next day, that same day, I was reading one of my favorite kind of like stories, and there was this concept of Ren. It's like a Confucian term, which means it's like an ideal in Confucianism, where it's like the way of humanity, the way of benevolence. And I was like, this is so cool. Like I literally, my wife says the bird name, and then I read this, and I was like, this is like incredible. And I did, because I'm a trademark lawyer. I did all my trademark searches and just dove in and checked the branding and all that kind of stuff. And
Right.
it was like available and clean. And I got a .com email domain and all this kind of stuff. And it just came together. And I actually recorded a video to explain it even in more depth because it's so it's me being authentic. It's who I want to
Mhm.
be. It's who I want to represent, right? Um, and so the company to me now is not just the law firm. It's my books. It's my writing. It's everything coming together. Even just being on a show with you and just having this discussion, sharing this kind of stuff. Like
Right.
that's what I'm about. Like let's talk about it. Let's dive in. So that's where I'm reinventing myself now, and it's actually very fun. It's very very fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love creating. So I realize I'm way more invested in what I create than assisting in what someone else is creating.
Well,
Like, it just matters so much
yeah.
more to
And it's
me.
it's true to you, and I would say you've even helped me, right, with hiring this project manager and
Mhm.
other things. I'm sure I'll be like, Julie, I need more help. But I think that's where it's like I want to make sure we fit, even with you help me with like the working genius. Like I feel like I don't get it completely. Like I get it conceptually, but I feel like you get it, and you're like, let me find the right pieces. Like
Mhm.
let's make sure the pieces fit together. So that's amazing, right? To me, that's how we build something that
Right.
I want to be a part of. Like that's where it's so invaluable to me. I don't have to understand when you were like, that's invention. I was like, is that what invention is? Okay. Right. Like I didn't realize that, but I guess I apparently IG were for whatever. Right.
Right.
But I do think that's, yeah, that's, you've been invaluable to me of just help me think about, hey, how do I avoid tension down the line just by getting the right people on the
Right.
team?
So I actually, because you're ma the discussion that we had about the invention, like, this is where I'm wondering, and this is where you're inventing. So yesterday, I got my daughter is in an online acting class, and when you're in, like, Zoom conferences and then you do these breakouts. So my daughter's 11, and she was in a breakout with another, like, 10-year-old, 11-year-old,
Yeah.
and I'm listening to this conversation, and this girl's like, "Well, what are your ideas?" I had to, like, write a script, like, super quick. And she kept asking my daughter about her ideas, what she wanted. And so I slipped my daughter a note, and I was like, ask her if she has, like, ideas, like, because I knew my daughter was in her, like, greatness, but to, like, don't take it all. Right. And so she asked the girl if she had, and she's like, I'm not really, I don't like ideas. I like to do the acting part of it. I want to be told what to do, and I want to bring my acting to it. And my daughter's definitely more like the writing ideas
Ah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, oh my gosh, this is working genius. Like, right here. Here I am thinking you need to be more polite, offer some joy to this child to participate, but that's not where her joy is. And
So
so
interesting.
yeah, so that's why she was offering all of that to my daughter, because she was like, I'm not good at this. You seem to be good at this. And that's working genius right there. I am in this line of the work. Like, we're trying to get this full product at the end. But if I show up in my genius and ask the questions, and then you show up in your genius and give me the ideas, and then the person that can get it across, like, it was all right there in front of me. And that's exactly what it is as you're building your team between your project manager and your virtual assistant. Like, you have the invention and the galvanizing. You are able to sell your product, or, what you're offering, your
Yeah.
services, and you need the other people with the other geniuses to come in and do that behind the scenes stuff that they actually love to do. Because I would assume I hate it, right? Like, I hate it, so you hate it. So I'm
Yeah,
being
everybody hates
lazy
it.
and
Everybody must
mad,
hate it.
right? And by making you do this, even though that's actually your place of joy. And so,
Okay, I have a question for you now based on this because I never understood invention until today, till our conversation. I never got it. I was like, what is invention? I don't even know. I figured wonder is like somebody with like, I don't know. I just picture them smoking like a pipe or something and being like, maybe we should do this and maybe this is a good idea. I never understood invention until today. So thank you. And I think I get discernment, right? Where you're picking something to do, right? Like you're
well,
making
discernment
a
is,
choice.
yeah, like, is this, so wonder is like, when I was talking to you earlier, I saw a problem. I was like, look, I see this problem, right? I'm very curious about what I'm seeing. I have no idea what to do about it. So I'm just talking that to you. So that's my wonder. And then you are like, it could be this, or this could be approached this way. So you maybe come up with like 4 or 5 ideas because you have ideas. And I struggle with the fact that I'm like, I want to be the person with the ideas, but I'm actually not. So I have to get over that. Discernment then says, of these ideas, because invention can just put them out there, a discernment can almost see till the end where things could like fall off the rails, or
Yeah.
where that's
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
that's a good idea for a different problem, or it starts just asking the questions and poking holes
Yeah.
in the idea. And then galvanizing enablement and tenacity. Galvanizing now has the why. Discernment gave them the why, and they're like, okay, we're going full throttle with this. Gets the team motivated, or is also very good at the selling piece of it to clients
Galvanizing is
as
good at
well.
selling.
Yes, and I've noticed that. And I typically, if it's a frustration, I definitely don't hire that person in a sales role. But I like it to be a
Oh,
genius. I
really?
like it to be
Okay.
a genius.
Interesting.
But if it's a frustration, it's an absolute like no, not going to do that.
Because I'm an
And
IG, right? That's me,
right,
right? I'm
right,
IG. Okay.
yes, no,
Okay.
and so is Armando. If that gives you
Which,
an
yeah,
idea.
not surprising. When we were at Summit and we were like, and John
Yeah.
Bond was talking about the working genius. It was like half the. I mean, I don't know, 3/4 of the entrepreneurs were IG. By the way, it was hilarious. Like it
Okay.
was crazy.
Yes, that makes total sense. Total sense. And so then enablement and tenacity are the people like you would want for your project manager or your assistant. That is like, here's the ideas, here's the why we're doing this. This is awesome. And I'm going to help you in any way you can. And tenacity is all about checking things off the list and the details and getting it done. And then like they won't sleep at night until it's done. Like that's their and like
So
we
interesting. Okay, I get it now. I'm understand that. This has been so helpful. Thank you for my, training
yeah,
session
I was
here.
like, I kept forgetting. I was like, why did you take the working genius? And yeah, okay, it's because John did it for
That's
the
right.
videos. Okay, so that
Yeah.
that makes sense. So yes, so and that's why I was trying to pair up your project manager in a certain way based on your geniuses and their
Yeah.
geniuses. And I told you, y'all are probably going to communicate very differently, and you might not even have a lot of fun with this person, and yet they're the person that you're going to need.
Julia, I bring fun everywhere I go. Okay, let's just put something out there. Okay,
No,
I
I believe
I
that.
have to like temper it. Okay, I mean like, what movie references can I make? I was literally before this podcast. I realize we're off in the weeds, so apologize.
No, this is
But
good.
before this podcast, I was talking to my bookkeeper. I have a great bookkeeping team.
Oh,
And I literally was like, "Do you like movies? Can I mention this movie reference? And are you okay with that?" It was like total tangent. We're talking about invoicing and all this kind of stuff. And she was like, "Yes." I'm like, "Have you seen this movie?" And she goes, "Yes, I love this movie." And then we bonded over bookkeeping call. But I was like, "Of
okay.
course, this is what I
That's a
do."
skill.
Like,
That is a
so
skill.
maybe this is the evangelist. I don't know what comes out, but
No, probably definitely is the galvanized. But if you can get a bookkeeper to go off of their line of thought, you have accomplished it. Because bookkeepers and I typically do not get along. So I'll have to come up with that edge of like, have we seen the same thing or read this like something to like, okay, we've got
yeah.
to get off invoicing. I know you're trying to make sure I have a profit and all that's great, but yes, I am the derailer of all meetings, most of the time. So
Yes. Well,
I'm
I
good
feel
with
like too, we thought we had a plan for this, and then we kind of like pivoted this way, and
it.
then we're going this way, and then we're just
Okay, I
like,
do want to cover one more thing. I want to make sure, and hopefully we don't. So I'm going to go back,
yep,
probably 10 to 15 minutes ago, and because I think this is important because I think authenticity is a big buzzword. And I do believe that leadership overall is becoming more authentic and vulnerable. And I think those are the kind of people you want to work with. Those are the kind of people I want to work with. They want team cohesion. They want good communication on their teams. And but you were talking about where authenticity, and I'm wondering too, as I was thinking about it, it but when you were talking about having boundaries and authenticity, I'm wondering if you're actually talking more about vulnerability. And so you were saying, because people are preaching authenticity 100%. So tell me where you kind of feel like you have hit a snag with that
Yeah, I
and
think.
what you think.
Wow, wow, what a good question. And maybe I am talking about vulnerability. Maybe I haven't refined it. I'm not thinking about it, but my first thought when people talk about authenticity and just like be authentic, like honestly, I don't know if I would tell everybody to be authentic, as like a general advice. Like I know we talked about before, like general advice that applies to everybody versus like specific advice. And
Mhm.
here's why I say that: some people got to work on their character and their um, moral compass before I would tell them to be authentic. Because a lot of times the people who struggle with authenticity, they they're self, they're just they're not comfortable with it. They got to start treating people better. Like don't sometimes be yourself is horrible advice. Like my experience is like if you're a jerk, don't be yourself, right? Like
So
there's
if you're responding to a jerk, like don't be
I'm
yourself.
just
Or
saying, like,
if you are a jerk, but nobody know do they know that?
well, some people know, some people don't care. They think everyone else is the problem, right? So that's why I say, like, to me, I'll just say what I think authenticity means to me.
Okay.
It's being truthful and being honest about the person I want to be, the people I want to spend time with, the things that I love. Like, one thing my wife has said about me for years is like, John, if I see a movie and I like it and I tell someone about it and they say it's dumb, then I think I'm dumb. If you see a movie and you tell someone about it and they think the movie's dumb, you think they're dumb. And so to me, like, I have this like love or this joy of evangelizing. I really do. Like I yesterday, Julie, I recorded a whole podcast about my favorite movie in the world. And literally I know, hey, do all these podcasts about we got to talk to people, we got to do this, we got to have a business purpose. You know what I literally said? You know what authentic John would do? John would say, "What's the coolest movie that people need to know about?" And we are going to talk for an hour about it, and we're not going to spoil anything. We're going to record a second podcast with spoilers, but because we love it so much, and I'm so passionate about this movie, I'm literally going to record this one. It's going to be super fun to talk to one of my best friends, Alpesh, about it, who's Indian, and he convinced me not to watch this Indian movie. And so I kind of make fun of him a little bit, like, dude, you got to have the non-Indian tell you to watch the Indian movie, and you're Indian. What's wrong with you, right? So but we had so much fun talking about this movie. And the podcast has nothing. I mean, all it does is it fulfills like my need to evangelize something that I think is cool. And that is John being referring to myself in third person. That is me being authentic to who I am and the stuff that I love and the stuff that is important to me. One, I got to spend an hour with one of my best friends in the world virtually. We got to talk about something that we both love and laugh about nonstop. And I got to share that joy with hopefully whoever watched it. It's not out yet. But
Right.
like when I think of being authentic, I think of, hey, I have a saying, treat people like people. Hey, you can do hard stuff. Like you're in, hiring world. Like it's tough. You got to have tough conversations with people.
Mhm.
Whether particularly if you got to terminate somebody, it's a hard conversation. And even I'm in an employment context where we're dealing with a business owner, they got to fire somebody. We're talking separation, severance, all this kind of stuff. These are hard conversations and they're very emotionally taxing, psychologically taxing, financially taxing.
Mhm.
You can still treat the person like a person and not an object, not like a line on a spreadsheet.
Right.
And that's what I believe. Treat people like people. And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean you let people roll over you. It doesn't mean that you're a pushover. It just means the person on the other side of this transaction, this other side of the relationship, is a person that has
Mhm.
hopes and dreams and fears and anxiety and family and health and all this kind of stuff. And just treat them that way. And even if you have to have a hard conversation, you can have a hard conversation, but you can still treat them like a person.
Right. Give
And
them their
so
dignity.
Exactly. That's me being authentic to who I am. Like, I don't want to ever be forced to not be that way. And that's me being authentic. Now, some people might have no problem with it. Okay, fine. You're being authentic to yourself. But sometimes you're going to hurt people. That's why I say, like, sometimes be yourself is not good advice, right?
Right.
Like,
Okay.
so I don't know if that gets to what you're getting at, but like, I'm trying to go all in on just, hey, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to share where I've failed. And I think that's where the vulnerability comes in because I'm reinventing. I'm excited. And hey, maybe I'm wrong about some movie, my favorite movie, RRR, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Guess what? Actually, I'm definitely not wrong about RRR. It's incredible. But I'm
That's the
just
name of the
saying,
movie,
like,
like 3 R's?
yeah, RRR. It's on Netflix. In fact, watch the podcast I recorded with my friend Alpish, and
Okay.
you will know immediately whether you want to watch it or not. But I'll just say, like, that's me being authentic. And I think that, again, it doesn't mean, hey, I'll go super deep into legal and tax. I read the tax code probably every single day, right? But I'm being authentic to myself and to the clients I'm trying to help and be helpful.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. Not that I haven't figured out, but it's like the question that changed my life was, what would I do? What would I do in this situation?
Right.
And I think there's times where you can be kind of gaslit to where you start to doubt, like, well, who am I? This is not how I normally act. Like, and then you just got to go ask that question. Well, what would I do? What would I have done 5 years ago? What would my kid self do? The line that I think about all the time is, um, the secret to life is to take all the things that made you weird as a kid and to make money off them when you're older.
Oh, okay.
And I think about that every single day, right? I want what I am like chasing now with authenticity is, would me as a kid be excited with who I am now? And
Okay.
like, if I could say yes to that, like, dang, what a great like barometer. Like, that's being authentic, you know?
No. Yeah, that okay. Yeah, I like that. In fact, I think that's I mean, I have like 15 to 20 different questions that I could keep going.
Well,
But,
let's come back. Let's
yeah,
do another.
I'm
We'll,
not
we'll
going to do
come
it
back
right
to that.
now. I think this is a great ending. So you nailed it. So I think we're good. Okay,
Awesome.
so your website, email address, ways that people can look at your
So
article.
yeah, so you can go. My firm website is rendios rendios.com. I'm also, my personal website is johnmashni.com, johnmashni.com. Those are the two best places to get in touch. There's a bunch of fun stuff on my personal site. All the articles I mentioned,
Mhm.
so links to the books. I got 4 books. I have a bunch of kind of secret fun stuff on the website too. If people are, I have a menu. I have a secret menu, secret area. I love this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, you can learn more about the law practice on rendios.com.
All right.
And yeah, it's the best way to get in touch.
All right, perfect. I knew it was going to be a great conversation. You did not disappoint. Thank you so much.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun. Thanks, Julie.
All right.